Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Welcome. Welcome back to the Defence Rests. Happy Thirsty Thursday, y'all. Hope you're having a good one. Um, we're entering day 4 of this nasty. I don't think sinister is the right word. It's worse than that. Sadistic should be in that description. But we'll get to that after the intro.
Justice served in an honest fight. True crime tales till the verdict's right. Solving more than just trivial quests, where sentences rule at the defense rests.
All right, welcome back. Oh dear, Bri, that's not good. Ooh, you said you were a bit crook yesterday. That's nasty. Please look after yourself. Good morning, Sharon. How are we? Good morning, Miss Teresa. Lovely to see you. Oh, aren't you lovely? Yeah, it's one of those things that YouTube, they have a set criteria of things that you need to meet within a time frame, and the time frame is 12 months. So you have to get at least 3,000 watch time hours. That means 3,000 hours someone has to have watched your content. You have to get 500 subscribers, and you have to have uploaded a certain number of videos within the last 90 days or whatever it is. So I've met everything, but it's just those last few subscribers, and it's not like I'm in a rush, because I only really started at the end of April. So I've done fairly well, like May, June, July, August, September. So probably 6 months I'm about to reach. So I'm pretty pleased with that, which is good. So thank you very much for all your support. It's amazing. And yeah, look out for the celebratory stream when that happens. But thank you. Now, I just wanted to mention, and to make sure that everyone down in Florida way is taking care and looking after themselves and is safe from, is it Hurricane Helena? Apparently it's looking to become a Cat 4 when it hits landfall today. So just be wary if you're in that area, and my thoughts are going out to you all that live down there. Keep me updated if you do live anywhere near there, or you know anyone that does. All right. Now, yesterday we caught up because it was only a morning session at court. So they're only doing a morning session again today, so it's another half day, which is good because we've got some documents and stuff that we can go through on the case. Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't like to be in Florida right about now. I think you'd be floating away. Poor buggers. So yesterday you missed the medical examiner yesterday, Bri. Oh Lord. Like, we saw some graphic stuff. Some of the scalp wounds, they actually took out Rachelle's heart and showed the actual puncture wounds in the heart itself. They showed the pictures of her lungs and liver. Yeah, and the photo, the autopsy photo, we didn't get to see it, obviously, but the autopsy photo that the medical examiner put up, that showed the majority of her wounds that were on her abdomen, her daughter yelled out in court and called him a bastard and lost her shit. So, poor bugger, because obviously she hasn't seen that and the extent of it. And the medical examiner also explained that the 55 stab wounds were only the ones that he deemed that penetrated deep enough because it was such a small blade that was used. So he hadn't included a lot of the lacerations and contusions and stuff that that she actually had. So the count was more than 55, but there was 3 to the top of her scalp, and one was had enough force to chip away some of the bone. It just horrendous. So I'm assuming that they will go through onto because we had the lead investigator, we've had the ME. I'm assuming the state will have their DNA or forensic experts today and then possibly rest. I don't know how much the defence has really got to put forward, but we shall wait and see. So, how if I go? Good morning. Hello. Welcome. Yeah. Oh, that's nice of you, Sharon. Thank you. Oh, that's not good. You've been sick for a month. Have you been to the docs? Yes. Well, that was just a snippet. Well, we haven't found it out yet. The DNA results. The DNA expert is due today, I believe. They showed close-ups of the Swiss Army knife, and it has 2 blades, one smaller than the other, and one of the smaller blades had a chip out of it, which they paid particular notice to. So I'm wondering if they've actually recovered that chip somewhere, because that would pretty much seal the deal in my eyes. But it showed also that there was cleaning product on the blades, and the investigator that collected the evidence didn't take samples of it because he didn't know how contaminated it had already become with the solution that was on it, and he didn't want to further contaminate it, so he just sent the whole thing to the lab. Now, the BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigations, refused to take the samples of his fingernail cuttings and scrapings for testing because they believed that that he would have had some kind of DNA evidence on under his fingernails because he was in the process of doing CPR. So they deemed his fingernail clippings and scrapings not necessary, basically, or they didn't think it was viable. What else did he say? The actual the final manner of death was multiple stab wounds, and it was deemed homicide as well. What else happened yesterday? I've slept since then, so I can't recall, but it'll come back to me, no doubt. So, day 4, queued up, ready to go, boosted. I suppose I should share and share alike. There he is, Mr. Madden, walking into court. I would hang my head too. Now, I've put up a little Q&A in chat as well, just to see what your favourite trial of all time is and why. I know what mine is, and we can possibly discuss that later. All right. Let me know if you can hear this properly in chat, and let's get on to it, shall we? You can't hear it now because there's no audio in the courtroom. Tell us about that. Oh, that's what they showed. They did a luminol test in the bathroom. Oh my God. You've got to go back and have a look at the luminol in the bathroom. That was horrible. Maybe we'll go back and have a look what time once this is finished. Come on. Audio, please. Well. Oh. And we've come back to the seal. Why is it so? Welcome, lovely to see you. Oh, okay. Wow. I think mine's Take Care of Maya. Bring the jury. Come on, peeps. What's the GO? They're already nearly an hour into their court proceedings. So they were supposed to start at 8:30 this morning. So they started at 9:10, your time. Oh, that's right.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
We've got them.
Thank you again for
The paper transcripts from OJ's trial. You said you had up in the attic, didn't you? You should get them AI transcribed and do like 100 pages a day, like present 100 pages a day on YouTube. There you go. That'd be interesting, actually.
coming in early today. Does anyone have any violations of the court's recess instructions that they need to report? Okay. All right. As you'll recall, we left in the middle of Detective Trenum's testimony. And Detective, I would remind you that you are still under oath. And Mr. Burris, you may resume your examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
That would have cost you a fortune, Bri, those transcripts.
Good morning again, sir.
Morning, sir.
All right, I think the last thing that we left with was, I think I was getting ready to have you identify a couple of swabs.
Yes, sir.
So if I may approach the witness, Your
You
Honor.
may.
Yes, I remember those days.
Yes, sir.
They brought in all of the forensic evidence yesterday under the lead investigator, so all the clothing.
State's exhibits 232 and 233.
Let's do it, lead
We'll
evidence.
start with 232 first. Can you tell us what State's exhibit 232 is?
State's Exhibit 232 are swabs that I obtained from the green colored vest jacket, from the marker number 1 in the photographs, from the lower left region of the red stain on the clothing.
And this defense attorney, prosecutor, hasn't got his shit together. It's very disorganized.
With the court's permission, I'd ask to publish State's Exhibit 114. It's already been vetted.
Permission is granted.
This is on the 2 speed. Yeah.
You can log down history, help them. Get this fixed.
I forgot. Stood. There we go. That looks better. Come on. Come on, baby, like my fire. Now that guy, you can see my mouse, that guy I'm circling there with the funky hairdo, he's the lead investigator. He's not actually with the, well, he was with the prosecution, but yeah, he's the lead investigator.
In State's Exhibit 2, 32.
And it is the crappiest feed.
This region here, and that's where I obtained the swabs from the red stain on that clothing item.
Okay. And then, with the court's permission, I'd ask you to go ahead and open State's Exhibit 232.
Permission is granted.
What, you want to see the swabs? Raleigh?
And this,
Yeah, that's a swab.
Court's permission, I'd ask you to open State's Exhibit 233.
Permission is granted.
More swabs?
and 233 again.
Oh, look at that. Another one.
Right.
So I've actually taken an online training that was presented by the Ohio Attorney General's Office and by BCI with their clear instructions of how to properly collect and swab samples such as these according to the policies and procedures. So I'm following the policies and procedures that BCI would employ at their crime lab, but I'm doing it so with the instruction from them, from the training I received here in-house at our headquarters.
Okay. And then, if I can approach the
You may.
release the area of the witness. So you said you took a swab from this area right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the other one is from this area right here.
Yes, sir.
Is there a particular reason, or why did you pick those two areas?
Because I had red stains
I
on
had
them.
actually collected swabs from all 5 identifiers on the front of the clothing,
Hello,
and
darling.
I had taken the sterile
Hello.
scraping of the dry substance on the back of the clothing. When coordinating with BCI about what they felt was best to initially submit, they wanted me to just submit the swabs from identifier number 1 as State's Exhibit 232 and swabs from identifier number 2, State's Exhibit 233, along with submitting the entire article of clothing. So that was their recommendation.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily your decision. It was sort of a collective effort of many individuals in order to determine which swabs to send up there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then when swabs are taken from items of evidence,
When swabs are taken.
114, what do you do with the swabs?
It's with the swamps.
Package them sterilely and submit them online through a portal to BCI, and it is transported up to BCI.
I would assume that, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
It's hand delivered.
And I assume once those items are taken, once those swabs are taken from the item it's contained in State's Exhibit 114, I assume those swabs are kept at the Hamilton Police Department, like in a property room?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay. Again, that property room is secure. Certain people would have access to the property room.
Yes, sir. I don't even have access to the property room, so I turn it over to another individual who securely has access.
And then the items would be taken to BCI by, I believe it's a rotation of different detectives. Detective each week would take any items up to BCI that need to be taken.
Yes, it is hand delivered by one of us to maintain that chain of custody.
Okay. And with the court's permission, if I can display State's Exhibit 132. I think it's already been admitted.
No, permission is granted.
All right, so what are we looking at here in State's Exhibit 132, Detective?
After I collected swabs from each of the identifiers on the clothing, I then applied Blue Star in the same manner as I did in the sink in the bathroom at 1270 Paris Avenue to this article of clothing. Again, it appeared to me that the red staining on the article of clothing resembled that of blood. I applied Blue Star to see if I would get the same reaction as I would have in the sink and get the same chemiluminescent reaction as an indication for the potential presence or likelihood of blood being present. And when I applied Blue Star
Looks
to
positive to me.
number one here, that was the reaction that I received, that there was a high likelihood that red staining on the article of clothing was blood. I also applied it to be able to show the contrast between the stain and the color of the green jacket. It was kind of hard to see in its natural state. So this highlights the difference in location of where I obtained the swabs as well.
Okay. And you would have taken the swabs first
Correct.
and then applied the Blue Star.
Yes.
Okay. State's Exhibit 133. What are we looking at here, Detective?
It is the same application of Blue Star, but it is on identifier number 2. I apologize, you can't see the identifier number 2 as clearly as number 1, but that is because the clothing item had folded when I was spraying it. But again, this is where I took swabs prior to the application of Blue Star and got the same reaction as I observed in number 1.
134.
This is identifier number 3 on the same clothing item. Again, with the application of Blue Star, I received the same chemiluminescent reaction, indicating that there was a high likelihood of blood being present from the area of where I obtained the swabs.
And then 135.
Identifier number 4, again, same reaction of Blue Star from the area where I collected the swabs from this particular location on the same clothing item.
And then 136.
Number 5, again, collected swabs from the general area, administered Blue Star afterwards. We've seen the same reaction with a high likelihood of the presence of blood.
And then 137.
137 is the rear of the clothing item behind the left armpit. This was not a swab. Again, number 6 was a red stain, a substance that had dried and flaked. And so I took a sterile scalpel. Again, it's prepackaged like you would the cotton swabs. And I was able to scrape that off into a druggist fold paper, package that to an envelope, much like the ones for State's Exhibit 232 and 233. Once that was collected, I still applied Blue Star, got the same chemiluminescent reaction with a high likelihood that blood was present.
If I may push the instrument.
You may.
And Detective, what I would ask the court's permission. And I believe you've already identified State's Exhibit 211, but I'll have you take out 2 of them. And I know some of the tags have fallen off.
Yes.
So with the court's permission, if I can have the detective step down, and I would ask him to point on the actual exhibit itself where region number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Permission is granted.
So again, a lot of the identifiers have fallen off because I manipulated it, BCI manipulated it, they've done their own analysis, it got sent back to us, we did another analysis of some areas. They, 1, the present in the lower left region, this general location. 2, again, the general location of the cut mark. 3, as you can see, is still attached. It's right here on the chest pocket with the zipper. 4.
Oh,
here,
it was horrible, wasn't it,
right
Sharon?
region. 5
Ugh.
was upper right region. And then if you flip around.
The sink was
6,
awful.
on the rear, the left armpit, right here, where I'm indicating the contact center. For number 6.
Thank you, Detective. If you would, Detective, can you tell us what is in State's Exhibit 218, the first bag I gave you?
You want me to remove it from the bag?
Yes, please.
Okay. State's Exhibit 218 is a dark colored gray button-up shirt. It was recovered on
Oh,
the
that's-
second search warrant conducted on the residence. However, it was located during the first search warrant on the residence, but we did not know its interpretive value. We did not know it was evidence
Okay.
until the second search warrant on the residence where we recovered it.
Okay. If you hold up State's Exhibit 218 with the court's permission.
This guy thinks is very, very important.
Button-up Dickies gray shirt.
Thank you, Detective. And I'll
Thank you, Detective.
be, asking you to hold that here in a second. If I can direct you to the exhibit book. I'm going to ask you to look at State's Exhibits 138 through 146.
Okay.
And generally speaking, what are we looking at in State's Exhibits 138 through 146?
States Exhibit 138 through 146 are photographs that I collected of the same shirt that I just showed before you, where I identified numerous evidence of red staining on this clothing item. I did not identify all because there were too many, but there were numerous where I was able to locate on this gray shirt.
All right, in State's Exhibit 138 through 146, are all those photos that you took?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Are those photos true, fair, and accurate as to your visual observations you were making of this gray shirt when you took the photos?
Yes, sir, they are.
Your Honor, I would ask that 138 through 146 be admitted and permission to publish.
Any objection? All right, they'll be admitted and they may be published.
All right, what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 138?
States Exhibit 138 is the gray shirt. And you
Okay.
can see that's just a photograph of it in its natural state.
And I know that you and I talked about this before. I know when looking at the photo, the shirt kind of looks green, doesn't it?
It does, yes. And that could be because of the lighting that we have at the department.
Okay, but the picture that we're looking at in State's Exhibit 138 is in fact the shirt that is on the floor behind you, on the ground behind you, which is State's Exhibit 218.
Yes, sir, it is. It's the same shirt.
Okay, and I guess with the court's permission, if you'd like to stand up and show the different tags. So I know there's a tag up top, and there's a tag towards the bottom of the shirt.
Permission is granted.
You can see
If you'd like to stand in front of the shirt, please.
inside the collar and the bottom of the shirt with the same manufacturer identifiers.
Okay. And
All right.
inside the collar there is also the Dickies, and
There is.
that's a Dickies.
Check this out. I found it. That's the sink, the bathroom sink with luminol. How revolting is that? Just goes to show you, just it ain't clean if it ain't clean. And then they showed the floor at the base of the pedestal, and then they showed what else? There's something else. Oh, the front door, I think. From memory. But yeah, that were nasty. Real nasty. Okay, I can go back now. Are you
Blue star, but it is on identifier number 2.
Sullivan?
That's a reaction to the high likelihood that blood was present.
If I may put you in the shirt.
You may.
And Detective, what I would ask the court's permission. I believe you've already identified State's Exhibit 211, but I'm going to take out 2 of them. And I know some of the tags have fallen off. So with the court's permission, if I may have the detective step down, and I would ask him to point on the actual exhibit itself, where region number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Permission is granted.
So again, a lot of the identifiers have fallen off because I manipulated it. I manipulated it. They've done their own analysis. It got sent back to us. We did another analysis of them. Are photographs that I collected of the same shirt that I just showed before you, where I identified numerous evidence of red staining on this clothing item. I did not identify all because there were too many, but there were numerous where I was able to locate on this gray shirt.
All right, in State's Exhibit 138 through 146, are all those photos that you took?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Are those photos true, fair, and accurate as to your visual observations you were making of this gray shirt when you took the photos?
Yes, sir, they are.
You know, I would ask that 138 through 146 be admitted in permission to publish.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, they'll be admitted and they may be published.
All right, what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 138?
State's Exhibit 138 is the gray shirt.
Okay.
And you can see that's just a photograph of it in its natural state.
And I know that you and I talked about this before. I know when looking at the photo, the shirt kind of looks green, doesn't it?
It does, yes. And that could be because of the lighting that we have at the department.
Okay, but the picture that we're looking at in State's Exhibit 138 is in fact the shirt that is on the floor behind you, on the ground behind you, which is State's Exhibit 218.
Yes, sir, it is. It's the same shirt.
Okay, and I guess with the board's permission, if you'd like to stand up and show the different tags. So I know there's a tag up top, and there's a tag towards the bottom of the shirt.
Permission is granted.
You can see
If you'd like to stand in front of the shirt, please.
inside the collar and the bottom of the shirt, the same manufacturer identifiers.
Okay, and inside the collar there is also the Dickies and,
There is
let's say Dickies and Flex.
Dickies Flex.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. The tag fell off here. All right, State's Exhibit 139. What are we looking at here in State's Exhibit 139?
This is same shirt, but just generally, these are the locations where I identified what appeared to be blood stains. To close up, it's the left side of the shirt.
Yes, I've
Right,
seen the
140
shirt 40 times
In
now.
the photograph, it looks like it's on the
Yeah.
left, as is. Red staining appeared on the shirt.
Show the luminol.
You may.
Show the luminol. No,
4 are swabs of the red staining that I collected from identifier number 3,
Ugh,
identifier
All right, so
swabs.
on to
14 on the right.
Is he going to go through every swab?
Yeah.
I bet
where
you he
State's
is.
Exhibit 234, where that swab came from, in State's Exhibit 235.
Oh,
See here.
are you fishes?
Swab that's in State's Exhibit 234 and the swab contained in State's Exhibit 235. How was that decision arrived at to send or to swab those areas and or to send that up to the lab?
Again, I spoke with the analyst.
Ah, so your favourite trial is Jodi Arias and the Casey Anthony. I haven't seen either of those. I've heard of Jodi Arias, and the name Casey Anthony rings a bell, but I don't recall. Mine, yeah, as I said, was take care of Maya, and there was one about a border patrol agent. I wrote it down the other day, and he unalived his mistress, Griselda Hernandez, and their son Dominic, who was only one. He lured them to where his border patrol unit was. Ronald. Oh, I wrote it down because my brain, work this time of day. Not that it works. Not 100% of the time, but Ronald Alvarez or something like Ronald. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it was nasty. And that really stuck in my mind. But Take Care of Maya is probably my all-time. No. All right.
Let's
get back to the swabs.
BCI. I gave them the pictures and documentation of this shirt, and it was their determination that
Sustained.
In consultation with BCI. Is that why it is that you sent out those particular swabs?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. I think you have the book. You have the books in front of you. If you would please flip to State's Exhibits 158 through 166.
All right, we're just admitting evidence here.
Series of, but these are photographs that I collected of the green vest here in State's Exhibit 1.
Lovely. We've seen plenty of photos of that vest.
Next to
Oh,
identifier
look,
number 2.
oh,
The uniqueness of that tear, I had to insert a piece of printer paper between the front and the back
that
of
matches the
photo,
knife.
so you could actually see what that tear looked like as it lay flat. Otherwise, it would blend in with the background of the vest through the.
That shape on that vest matched. Remember they showed the flick knife yesterday, and one of the blades had that jagged V out of it because they thought initially that it was a can opener, but no, the blade had broken off. But that there is exactly the shape of that blade.
The tear. You wouldn't see it as well.
I should have been a
These
detective.
photographs were taken well after these items were sent off to the lab for testing, and they were brought back to the Hamilton Police Department.
Yes, after the department and the prosecutor's office had spoke, we had decided that there was no more analysis to be performed by BCI, and that we were given permission to handle said items in this manner.
State's Exhibit 160.
So, State's Exhibit 160.
And let me stop you there, Detective. I'm a crucial witness.
You may.
There you go. See? I didn't even watch it. Man, I missed my calling.
I believe we looked at this yesterday, but State's Exhibit 215. Again, what is State's Exhibit 215?
This
State's
is the
Exhibit
flick knife, I would
215
think.
is the
Yeah.
Swiss Army knife, a multi-tool knife that was recovered from the residence.
Okay. And what is it that we're looking at in State's Exhibit 160 then?
I was asked to see if there was any correlation between the
The
first blade
smaller blade.
attachment, where the blade was broken in some manner, and see if it correlated in any way or resembled in any way the tear that was observed on the green vest jacket.
And that's why it is you took this particular photograph?
Correct.
It makes it sound so
State's Exhibit 161.
Again, this is just another angle of how this uniqueness of the defect of the blade could have some similarities within the tear within that clothing.
162.
So again, with
yeah.
permission to handle these items in this manner, I inserted the knife between the front of the green vest jacket and the rear to be able to show maybe how the uniqueness of the blade defect could have caused this tear in this jacket, and is lined up as so.
State's Exhibit 163.
That is the orientation in which I took the photograph as observed in State's Exhibit 162, the one you just saw before. So that's how it was oriented and aligned as best as possible.
State's Exhibit 164.
So State's Exhibit 164, again, with permission to handle said items of evidence, we aligned the gray shirt inside of the green vest as one would normally wear it to see if there were any correlations as how it was aligned on someone's body if being worn together.
State's Exhibit 165.
And as you can see, I have then aligned the blade again, kind of demonstrate that uniqueness of the tear in the green vest jacket with the gray shirt inserted between.
And then 166.
And as an overall view of all the items combined with the blade itself having been inserted between the clothing items to kind of show the edge of the blade as having cut through the green vest.
All right, thank you, Detective. And then you have the exhibit book in front of you. I'd ask you to look at State's Exhibits 167 through 176.
Okay.
And generally speaking, what are we looking at in State's Exhibits 167 through 176?
These are photographs of the deceased victim's shirt where multiple tears were observed. And again, I was asked to see if there were any similarities with the multi-tool and specifically with the first blade attachment with the defected blade to see if anything lined up.
Again, are those photographs that you took
Yes, they are.
true, fair, and accurate depictions of what it is that you were looking at?
Yes, sir.
On as to 167 through 176 be admitted and permission to publish.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right, they'll be admitted and they may be published. You may.
All right, what are we looking at here in State's Exhibits? So we're going to go to 210.
State's Exhibit 210 is the deceased victim's shirt as observed in the photograph above.
So then what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 167?
That is the victim's shirt laid out flat as best as possible. It's in front of it.
State's Exhibit 168.
State's Exhibit 168 is a tear within the victim's shirt. Again, I was asked to see if there were any similarities between any of the tears in the victim's shirt with that unique first blade attachment of the multi-tool or Swiss Army knife.
State's Exhibit 169.
So that is a close-up view of one of the tears. I identified it as tear number 1 in the photograph, as State's Exhibit 168 depicted. This was a close-up photograph of this.
State's Exhibit 170.
This is with that multi-tool, and the first blade attachment has the piece that's missing from the blade aligned with the tear in this fabric.
State's Exhibit 171.
This is a second tear.
Good morning.
I identified
Leonard
as tear number 2
Hansnick,
within
welcome,
the victim's
welcome.
shirt.
Thank you for popping in.
All right, and I can push
You may.
You missed the medical examiner and all of the
Can you show us
luminol.
on the actual shirt
yesterday.
itself, State's Exhibit
Nasty.
210, where that photograph is taken of?
Yes.
And with the court's permission, I ask that to be able to step down and show the jury.
Permission is granted.
I don't really fancy looking at this one. This is
You can help me now.
Rachelle's, the victim's shirt.
And I took that photograph.
Oh, I don't fancy looking at that with luminol. Let's see
Down to make sure.
if he actually does it. Unless
When
he's,
that-
he's still doing the knife.
First blade attachment, with the piece missing in the multi-tool appeared.
State's Exhibit 174.
This is tear number 4. It's on the victim's shirt.
Yeah, it was
And the court's
shocking.
permission, Are you able to show on the shirt? where
Just ask Sharon. Oh,
Exhibit number 4, the arrow is on the.
I think we may have this witness and then possibly the forensic pathologist, the specialist, DNA analyst or whatever, to identify whose DNA was where on all this. And then I think the state might rest.
Lined above the tear in the fabric. And
Oh,
the same tear identified as number 4, but with the blade attachment not aligned above, but over top of the tear in the fabric.
All right, thank you, Detective. And if I may push the witness.
You may.
Back to State's Exhibit 2.
more swabs. There's a swab here, swab there,
Rubbed the red staining.
more swab.
Prepackaged cotton swab back in its original packaging.
Why he's asking him to get every swab out that they took? It's beyond me. Yes. Yes. He's got the vid. Oh, and there's a sidebar. He keeps looking back at his daughter. Yesterday, when the medical examiner was going through the autopsy photos, and he showed the one of her wounds on her abdomen where the majority of the penetrating wounds were, his daughter cried out and called him a bastard in court, and then lost it. It was awful. Imagine seeing your mother in that condition.
I believe my question was, what methods or how did you try to make contact with Toby Madden?
So using the information from the report, phone number, address, I attempted to make contact by calling the listed phone number on the offense report to speak with Mr. Madden. I received no answer after calling twice. I then left my business card with my name, identifying that I was a detective with the City of Hamilton Police Department at the residence
With 1270 Parish?
of 1270 Parish. The report, though, indicated an incorrect address for Mr. Madden. Said he resided at 250 Brookwood Avenue, which is not a good address for the defendant. The offense report was made for 1270 Parish Avenue. That's where I responded to in an attempt to speak with Mr. Madden and leaving my card. After having left my card, I still never received a call or contact from Mr. Madden himself, and I made the case inactive until further, until he made attempts to reach out to me.
I can have probably 2 or 3 moments, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Give me 1 second, Mr. Miller.
Oh, come on. Another one? Rolly? Ugh, she did have quite a few people around her. I think she even had a police escort. But yes, she does have an advocate with her. Boxes and boxes and bags and bags. Oh, cross.
Is there a
Yeah.
chance you didn't have the correct number when trying to contact Mr. Madden?
To be honest with you, whatever number I was given was the one I attempted to make contact with. I received no contact. That's why I made a personal appearance to drop my card in case the number was wrong.
Okay.
You could contact me with the correct number.
Sure. But my original question is there a chance you had the wrong number?
Yes, the phone number could have been documented incorrectly by the reporting officer.
And the reporting officer on that was Taylor Bryant, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you review his report before you came into court today?
Yes, I've reviewed that report.
And were you,
So the defense attorney comes in after they've produced all of that evidence and all of that luminal and all of those marks and matching blade knives, and he comes in with, could you have called the wrong number? Because that, sir, is what you argue when you don't have an argument.
at the time, were you a detective assigned to that specific burglary that occurred 5 days before?
Yes, I was.
Is it your understanding that Officer Bryant responded to the scene
Yes, he did.
and took
Oh,
photos?
that's
Yes, sir.
good.
And does his report indicate that there was damage to the back door?
Yes, it does.
There's the back.
Did you have any contact with anybody else at 1270 Parish.
We're
such
waiting on the
as
Walmart
Rachelle?
reference.
No, I did not.
And you never spoke or saw Mr. Madden in relation to the burglary 5 days before?
No, sir.
Did you yourself go out to 1270 Parish and look at the property or the door at all?
I didn't know. I try to make contact with residents there before going to the back of the residence, make my appearance known that.
Why do you have to take compulsory days off now that you've been positively diagnosed with the VIN, given your employment? Do they still have mandatory days off, or do you have to just take days off until you get a negative test? Just wondering what the
Law enforcement
procedure is
about
now.
somebody just wandering about the backyard. So I did not go to the rear of the
10
residence to
days.
inspect the damage as reported.
Okay.
I just went to the residence to try and make contact with a homeowner or a resident there.
Sure. And detective, you can't do every single thing possible on a case. Sometimes you have to rely on reporting officers or patrolmen to do certain things for you and give you this evidence for you to follow up on if you need to. Is that kind of fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to start with regards to the incident that ends up happening 5 days later. The knife, if the state would mind, since they're connected to the overhead, if you could put 150 up for me, please. Yeah. Detective, where did this knife come from within the parish residence?
It was located within the deceased victim's black backpack.
To your knowledge, was that black backpack, was it zipped up or buttoned
Make it
up in
easy and
any
make the
way?
most of them.
I can't recall if it was zipped up or secured in any way.
Okay.
It's kind of feeling like it might be extended to about 10. I reckon you could at least milk it for that.
Now, you testified that you observed this knife and you thought that there may be some sort of residue or some sort of wiping on this. Is that what you testified to?
Yes.
Now, you've shown us the fluorescent blue star that you used on other things, the sink, we saw it on the vest.
Oh,
Um,
you should have seen
Why
that.
did you never use the blue star?
The
on this
luminol.
knife?
The luminol on the sink in the bathroom. Lit up like the North Star. Federal employees have no sick leave requirement anymore. Good to know healthcare still has regulations. Well, he said minimum 7 days. I don't know whether or not, I'm hoping that he would be getting sick pay for those days. You'd want to. If there'd be an uproar if they didn't pay it here, that's for sure.
To see if there was presence of blood on this.
That's because, again, this was a critical piece of evidence. So you kind of have to weigh the results of some tests being performed versus what your results may be. Knowing that this was a critical piece of evidence that might have minimal but sufficient important evidence to this case, I did not want to interrupt any DNA typing or analysis conducted by BCI
And
by
that's fair enough.
introducing Blue Star. Blue Star is a tool, it's a screening tool that you can use if you have sufficient evidence to use it. Here, I did not want to use it on such a critical piece of item of
Should
evidence.
dilute it.
I just wanted to document it and submit it to the lab so they could do their own analysis in a more sterile environment.
I thought you testified though about blue star that doesn't interrupt blood presence if it's there. I thought you said that to us.
Yes, you are right. It does not interrupt DNA typing or analysis. But again, you want to be able to have sufficient evidence to document the presence of blood. And on such a small knife blade, I don't want to apply Blue Star by overspraying and causing any DNA or blood that could have been present to fall off of the blade onto the sterile cardboard sheet below, and therefore losing that value of any evidence or potential evidence.
Okay. And the determination and maybe the conclusion of whether or not this blade has blood on it, that's for a DNA expert from BCI. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
I've never bought it. It has to be
Were there
delivered
any
with water anyway,
photos
doesn't it?
of this knife sent to the coroner?
If there were, I did not send them. I do not know.
Okay. That wasn't something you were involved with?
No, sir.
Do you recall, well, you weren't recorded. The coroner reference maybe possibly having a photo of a knife, but you're saying you weren't involved with that.
No, sir, I was not.
Did you attend the autopsy?
No, I did not.
Is it a common practice for someone within your department or your agency to attend the autopsy?
That depends upon the coroner. I guess it's a case by case. Sometimes we're allowed to attend, and sometimes we're not allowed to attend. But I did not attend.
To your knowledge, within the residence during these searches, were there any rags, towels, paper towels covered in blood recovered?
Not that were apparent or observed at the scene.
Come on, Law and Crime. Get it together.
If the state could please pull up 77. Detective, this is one of the exhibits that you testified to, I believe it was yesterday. So the fluorescent that we're seeing here is indicating that there's blood that was present at some point.
There it is. Look at that.
It is a screening tool.
That's
gives
the
you with
sink.
A degree of certainty that within the fluorescence that there is a high likelihood that blood is present.
And you would agree with me
I
that
think.
the sink is normally a place where you're going to wash your hands, correct?
That is correct.
And would you agree with me that if you had placed your hands on someone's body to perhaps give CPR, that you might end up with blood on your hands?
That is correct.
Are we able to tell from this fluorescent imaging whether someone washed their hands, but then they try to wipe any and everything away from the sink? Can we tell that from this image?
No, I don't see any apparent, if you're asking for like smears or wipes.
Because what I want to ask is if someone washed their hands in the sink and there's blood that falls in the sink, the water takes most of the blood down into the sink, but then someone wants to then take a rag, kind of wipe the bowl out, wipe the edges. Would this fluorescent that we see in State's Exhibit 77, would it appear differently? Would it have swirls and motions like that for the blood?
I don't know if it would or not, to be honest with you. I just know how to detect its presence and recognize its appearance with the reaction. I don't know if it would show a smear.
Okay. Well, during your training with Blue Star, do they not cover something like that we can not only detect where blood has dropped, but we can also tell if someone has tried to wipe blood away? Is that not part of the training?
No, I'm sure you could be able to indicate if something has been wiped up, but specifically, no, that was not covered in any of the trainings that I was a part of.
All right. So you're telling me this picture is going to appear that way, whether the blood just was washed off hands, went down the sink, or if someone sat there and you literally used the towel to try to wipe everything up. You can't
He's
tell
not-
us this picture.
he's
would be
told you
different,
that
someone
he's
trying to wipe
not-
all that away.
Oh, no, I'm sure it has the possibility of appearing different, yes.
Just a possibility? You don't think it would show swirls in this picture if someone used it?
I
Outside of
haven't
scope.
been a part of any type of practical examination of that, but it is possible, yes.
You were involved with some of the searches at the property, correct?
Yes, I was there.
Were you involved with the search of Rachelle's car at the residence?
I did not search the victim's car.
Okay, so you would not be aware that rifles were found inside her car?
I was not part of that search.
What's that got to do with anything? Rifles. She wasn't
I
shot.
would mind putting Exhibit 160 up. When I talked about State's Exhibit 160, you were talking about the knife and you were talking about some of the cuts within the vest. You've handled not only the vest and the knife. You see pictures of it. You were there. You've analyzed it. Would you agree with me that the vest and the knife are not new?
Are not new.
Meaning like they don't appear that they were recently purchased. They appear old. It's not like they were 1 week old, like they've just been bought.
I can't date the appearance of clothing when it was purchased versus if it's worn, and same thing with a knife.
You can't tell does that knife appear to be new?
No, it doesn't appear to be brand new, but I'm not going to date it.
Does that appear to be rust on the knife?
Yeah, there could be indications of rust on the knife.
I mean, common
What,
knowledge.
could
is
be
that
blood as
it's on the
well.
knife, right?
Right.
Takes a long time.
I don't, again,
Just off your
Yes.
common everyday knowledge with things you have in your house or you've been around, it takes a long time for rust to set in.
Oh
Is that
my
fair?
God.
I would say it does take time for rust to set in.
If it is rust,
When you're testifying about the cut in this vest, you said you had to put a piece of white paper underneath it to see it, correct?
Yes, because the background behind the cut is the same as the foreground, so it blends in. So yeah, I had to put a piece of paper in between so you can see the actual layout of the tear in the fabric.
So this, in order to find this cut and to look at it, you had to get pretty close to it. Is that fair?
Yes,
So if there was an angle from a Kroger video up on the ceiling, there's a chance it might not capture a cut that's in a vest. Is that fair?
that depends on the quality of the camera.
Well, true. You do agree with me that you need a piece of copy paper just to see the cut up close, right?
I think it highlights the difference. It contrasts it. You could see the cut. I could pull the article item out and the jury and everybody here would see the location of where the cut is. But to see it more thoroughly as what its design is, you need to highlight and contrast the differences between the front of the vest and the back of the vest. So
And we don't know how long that cut's been on that vest. Is that fair?
I don't have any way to date how long that cut's been there.
All right, that's all. Well, give me 1 second to confer.
Lame. Just so lame. Sorry.
Nothing further, just.
Yeah.
Can you redirect?
Hold on, hold on.
Okay.
Make your minds up.
Let's see if that's all right there. Sir, did you do any kind of blue star illumination on the back door or near the back door?
No, I did not.
Was there any thing you did to try to observe or find out if there was any blood or other evidence at the back door?
The back door was locked with both doorknobs. I didn't have an indication that it had been opened at the time that I responded for the first search warrant on the day of the incident. So no, I did not.
But you were aware that 5 days before a burglary had been reported at that back door?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Can you redirect?
Again, it was just reported, there was no follow-up that was able to be done because you couldn't make contact with them.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Detective. Can you sit down?
All right. Who's up next? Who's on first?
Stay ready to call his next witness.
First of all, I believe Detective Trevor can be released from the state in honor of Mr. Butler.
I'm sorry, Judge.
Detective Trevor be recalled?
No.
Okay, that's one reason for my speaking. This might be good, I know it's a little early, this might be a good mid-morning break time because I think the next witness is going to be here.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Thank you for that. Let's go ahead. and take our break.
Mid-morning.
It's about 9:40. We'll take 15 minutes and come back at 9:55. Please remember my recess instructions.
We've only been there for an hour. Like okay. Skippity doo dah.
Yes, I think the civil highway call Catherine Daly.
Catherine Beerley. Forensic pathologist, DNA analyst, I'm guessing. Come on down.
My name is Catherine Daly. First name is spelled Katharine. Last name Daly, Dailey.
And where
She
are
spells it in the CC, still got it wrong.
The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigations. It's commonly referred to as BCI.
Okay. And what is BCI?
BCI is a law enforcement agency that will assist various other local law enforcement agencies in the investigation of crimes.
Okay. And is there a particular section of BCI that you work for?
Yes, I work in the laboratory
There
section,
you go.
specifically in the DNA section.
Okay.
DNA
And
specialist.
what would be your job title at BCI?
I'm a forensic scientist.
And explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what it means to be a forensic scientist.
A forensic scientist will look at items of evidence and collect samples for different types of analyses. In my case, collect samples for DNA analysis.
Okay. And in regards to
He must have requested that she not be on camera. That's why they're focusing on the attorney and not.
your employment at BCI,
All right. So
This is like
education qualified.
thousands of times.
Yeah.
based on the testing experience you have run on evidentiary items submitted to your lab.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And if I use the phrase inclusions, what does that mean to you?
If someone is determined to be included in a DNA profile, that means that their DNA profile that we obtain from a known standard is consistent with that of a DNA profile obtained from an evidence item.
Okay. And if I use the phrase exclusion, what would that mean?
That means when making those two comparisons again between the known DNA standard and a DNA profile from an evidence item, at least one of the locations that we're looking at on that DNA profile is not consistent.
Okay. And have you previously been qualified as an expert in forensic science in the courts of law? First of all, here in the state of Ohio.
Yes,
How many times would you say that you have been?
it's upwards of 80 times.
Okay. And how about outside of the state of Ohio or including the federal system? Have you been called to testify as an expert as well in either other states or in the federal system?
In the federal system, yes.
Okay. How many times would you say you testified in the federal system?
One time that I can recall offhand.
Okay. I believe you told me this here in the state of Ohio goes in the federal system.
Yes,
Okay. And, at this point, Your Honor, I would tender Ms. Daly as an expert in forensic science as it relates to DNA analysis.
Mr. Wyder?
Judge, no for dire for this witness, no objection.
Very well. Witness will be so qualified.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Daly, it's my understanding that you were asked to compare various items in the cases before this court in regards to DNA. Is that correct?
yes, that's correct.
And as part of the comparison process that I'm going to have you talk about, generally speaking, can you educate the ladies and gentlemen of the jury as to how it is evidence arrives at your laboratory at BCI?
Yes, a local law enforcement agency will bring the evidence to our laboratory, and our evidence receiving staff will take in that evidence. It's assigned a unique case number, and each item of evidence is given a unique item number. These are tracked throughout the laboratory via barcodes, and they're placed in a secure vault until analysis is begun on those items of evidence.
Okay. And if I may push you on this.
You may.
Hopefully there'll be an item that's on the screen behind you. This is going to be, just for purposes, this will be State's Exhibit 234. And just generally speaking, there's a kind of a light purplish type label that is on this particular exhibit. Can you just explain what it is that we're looking at here? So I know we started talking about barcodes and things like that. So what is indicated on this particular exhibit?
So this purple barcode that is on this item will tell us what the BCI lab number associated with this item of evidence in this case is. It also tells us what the BCI item number is. At the top, it says item 15. It'll tell us what agency submitted that item as well as their agency case number. And this is the barcode that would be used to track that evidence item throughout the laboratory. So for instance, when I would take this item of evidence into my custody, I also have a barcode that's assigned to me. So this would track it in the computer system saying that it's in my custody.
Okay. And I would assume that each case would have a unique lab number. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then, but if there's multiple items that are submitted under the same lab number, that's how we get item number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to however many items BCI lines up getting.
That's correct.
Okay. And I would assume that when items are submitted to BCI, where would they be stored? Obviously prior to testing and then stored after testing.
They're secured in a evidence vault.
Okay. And again, I assume that not just anybody has access to the evidence vault. There's only certain people who will be allowed to go into the evidence vault.
Yes, it's limited access.
Okay. And I would assume that there has to be some sort of code punched in order to go into the vault to obtain items.
Yes, in order to obtain those items, you have to scan a card as well as punch in a specific number to the individual that's trying to get into the vault.
Okay. I'm going to take this down for now. So how is it that you're able to ensure the integrity of evidence that is submitted to BCI and stored at BCI prior to testing?
So when the evidence items are received by the laboratory, the seal is checked on those items of evidence, as well as when that item of evidence is retrieved for analysis, the seal is also checked and noted. If any irregularities would be noticed, that would be put in the analysis notes.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that I have used the phrase DNA, and I'm sure everybody has heard from TVs and movies about DNA, but could you please educate ladies and gentlemen of the jury here as to what DNA is and what does DNA stand for?
Yes, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a blueprint for our bodies, so it's going to tell us things like what color hair we might have or what color eyes we might have. We get half of our DNA from our mom and half from our dad, and it's unique to each individual, except for in the case of identical twins, and it's also the same throughout our body. So if I were to take a swab from my cheek and a blood sample for myself, the DNA profile developed from each of those would be the same.
Now, in regards to DNA and what it is we just testified about, Can DNA be used for comparison purposes to see if you can identify samples left behind on different objects to a certain individual?
Yes, it can.
Okay, if you would explain, ladies and gentlemen, jury, how it is that you can do that.
So when we're making a DNA comparison, it's a 4-step process. The first step is going to be extraction. So we're going to take the DNA off of whatever item it was, whether it was a swab similar to a Q-tip, a cutting from an item, or a sample from like a cigarette butt. The second step that we're going to do then is quantification. We're going to determine how much DNA was obtained from that sample. Third step is called amplification, where we're going to make millions of copies of certain regions of the DNA. And the fourth step is a real fancy word for taking a picture. It's called electrophoresis. So when I have those pictures at the end from both the evidence samples as well as the known reference standards, I can compare those two together and see if they are similar or dissimilar.
Okay. Now, in regards to DNA that may be left behind on a particular item, can you explain to ladies and gentlemen of the jury how that might happen?
Yes, DNA can be left behind on an item a number of different ways through bodily fluids. So saliva, urine, feces, semen, blood, or it could be left behind on an item by touching it. So my DNA would be expected to be on the binder that I brought with me today.
Okay. And if I use the phrase primary transfer, what does that mean to you?
That is the direct transfer of DNA to an item. So my DNA to my binder would be primary transfer.
And then what about secondary transfer?
Secondary transfer would be if someone came and picked up my binder other than myself. And if I were to try to swab their hands, they may or may not have my DNA on their hands because of that secondary transfer.
Now, in regards to internal lab protocols at BCI, what efforts are made to prevent cross-contamination or mixture of substances or samples that you may test?
So there are a number of different precautions that we take at the laboratory. Just to name a few, only one item of evidence is open at a time, so we're only looking at one item of evidence. We will also use a bleach solution to bleach down our worktops. We use brown paper to serve as a barrier between that bleached benchtop and the item of evidence. We also wear personal protective equipment, so gloves, masks, lab coats, just to name a few things.
So in essence, you're not going to be testing multiple items at a time, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I assume every time an item is tested, all surfaces and utensils will be cleaned before testing another sample?
Yes, absolutely.
And I assume that those are the protocols that BCI puts in place specifically for all employees to follow to make sure there isn't any sort of cross-contamination or anything like that.
Yes.
All right, so now in regards to DNA, what is the methodology that is used for determining if a particular item does have any DNA on it? And if it does, take us through the process, and I think you talked about it a little bit, of extracting that DNA from that item.
Yes. So initially, the item is received by a forensic biologist, and the forensic biologist is someone that's going to look at the item of evidence and collect any relevant samples. So they're going to look at potential bodily fluids, see if they can perform any testing to try to help determine what that bodily fluid might be. They'll collect samples from either bodily fluids or samples where someone might come into contact with an item. So shirts, maybe the way they wore it. So they'll swab the shoulder areas that come into contact with your skin. If it's something like a cigarette butt, they might take a cutting from the paper around the cigarette butt. And those samples are then placed into a tube and they are sent forward for the DNA analysis process. The DNA analysis process is that 4-step process that I mentioned earlier.
And go ahead and what just the different names of the process.
Yes. So first is extraction. Second is quantification, then amplification, and then electrophoresis, where we get a picture of the DNA profile.
So what is it that you're actually doing to the sample that you have in order to extract it?
We are applying certain chemicals to that sample to help remove the DNA off of whatever the substrate was that it was on, whether it was a swab or a piece of paper, and get it into the solution so that we can look at just the DNA itself.
All right, and we're going to get into this here probably very shortly, but with that process, that you do with the items that they're going to be compared, there's probably 2 different phrases that we're going to talk about. So what is a known sample?
A known sample is a sample collected from an individual, so the origin is known. So we can use that DNA profile obtained from that item as a reference standard for comparison to any unknowns.
Okay. And then what's an unknown sample?
An unknown sample is a DNA profile that is obtained from evidence items within the case.
Okay. like the items have been submitted to you guys?
Yes,
So then in regards to known samples that BCI would receive and unknown samples that BCI would receive, would you be able to compare those known samples to unknown samples to see if there is a match?
yes,
And I assume when you make that type of comparison, whether they're known samples or unknown samples, do you generate or author a report to document what your findings are?
yes,
And I assume that those reports are generated in the ordinary course of business by BCI?
yes,
And those labs would be, or those lab reports would be kept in the ordinary course of business at BCI?
yes,
And would you have done that in this particular case?
yes, I did.
Okay. And when you compare DNA samples or unknown samples to known samples, are you able to calculate a statistical frequency of a particular DNA profile?
Yes, we will calculate statistics on the evidence profile to show how rare or how common it is within the population.
And if I may approach the commissioner.
You may.
The true, fair, and accurate, is that, actually, let me ask you this, is that a copy of your report?
Yes,
And is that a true, fair, and accurate copy of the report that you would have generated?
yes, it is.
And would that aid you in your testimony today?
Yes,
I know we have several things to go through. All right. If I may approach the witness, Your Honor. I'll have you identify what State's Exhibit 222 is, please.
State's Exhibit 222 is BCI item number 1, which is a DNA standard from Ms. Brewsaugh.
And I think that is the only one that has not been opened. Okay, first one, sure.
Right.
And what is contained within State's Exhibit 222?
State's Exhibit 222 has a blood card from Ms. Brewsaugh.
And I'm going to ask you to open that second envelope as well. Yeah, this one.
We've got so many bags of evidence there. We've been through every one of them, even the swabs. Oh, look, there's a label on a bag.
Is this card?
Our item number,
Oh, just tell me whose blood's on what.
And then State's Exhibit 223.
State's Exhibit 223 is BCI item number 2, which is a DNA standard from Mr. Madden.
And if you would take out what's inside, and I will put an envelope. I didn't ask for permission for that permission to publish.
Yes.
223.
Yes, granted.
And on the screen to your left, again, do you recognize any of the numbers or markings on that?
Yes, this is the barcode for BCI item number 2 under BCI.
Oh, really?
I believe this particular one. Would you mind taking that out, please? Did you recognize, are there any markings on that particular exhibit that you recognize?
Yes, on this exhibit, there are the same markings as before from the analyst who took the sample from this item.
permission to publish.
Let's have a look at another barcode. Woo!
What we're looking at here on the screen.
Yes, it is.
Zippity-doo-dah.
These would be what are known as known samples, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And are these two items, the 222 and 223, are those items that would have been tested by BCI?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with 222, the blood card from Ms. Brewsaugh. Were you able to develop a DNA profile from that blood stain card?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And with that DNA profile, would that have been developed using the procedures outlined for the ladies and gentlemen here?
Well, good morning, Edith. How are we? Happy Thirsty Thursday. Hopefully you're not down Florida way. That sounds nasty. Nasty over there. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Did you see the luminol sink yesterday with the medical examiner? Oh, Lord. Lit up like the North Star.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess if you would, now that we're talking about an actual sample, but just go ahead and briefly explain to them the procedures again as to how you develop a DNA profile from.
Yes. So in this instance, a tip of the swab would have been cut into a tube, and it would have been
Oh.
stored for the.
You're in Florida. Oh. Well, I hope she's safe. Have they evacuated or? That's scary. I don't know the geography of Florida particularly well. So the east coast of Florida, is that? I don't know. You can tell me and I wouldn't be able to work it out. Oh, really? They're saying that it's going to be upgraded to a Cat 4 when it landfalls. So she needs to say stay safe. Grab your stuff and your pets and go. Make sure you've got good insurance. You poor buggers. Look after yourselves, all right?
The DNA analysis process. So it would have been undergone the extraction process, quantification, amplification, and electrophoresis. And then I would have used that picture of the DNA profile to make my comparisons to any profiles developed from evidence items.
And from State's Exhibit 222, the blood stain card, are you able to develop a DNA profile?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And if I use the wrong word, please correct me. And then in regards to State's Exhibit 223, the swab from individual identified as Toby Madden, were you able to develop a DNA profile from that particular item as well?
Yes.
And you would have used the same procedures that have now been outlined twice by you in order to generate a DNA profile?
That's correct.
And you were able to develop a DNA profile?
Yes.
So now that BCI has a DNA profile from Ms. Brewsaugh from the blood stain card,
So how far from Florida Keys are you, Urhev? Is that like the middle section of Florida, or is that the tip of Florida? I really need to get a map of America because I have no idea where you all are. Well, I know where Bry is, but Florida's way down below him on the map.
and now has a DNA profile from Toby Madden from the swab. Are you now able to, I guess, compare those particular items?
Wow.
The blood stain from 222.
Is Florida that big? You're a 4-hour drive from Key West. So Key West, are you closer to the mainland or are you closer to the tip? So the Keys are a chain off the southern tip. Okay. West Palm Beach, right next to Trump's palace. Well, I'm sure you'll be safe there. I reckon he's got some kind of backup plan for a shelter of some sort. So why don't you rip up, fly up, pick your mum up, and go and bunk in with Trump. Sure he won't mind. I'm sure he's got a helicopter pad somewhere.
To the DNA profile. The DNA profile from 223, are you able to compare that to unknown samples?
Yes,
And then by comparing those known samples to unknown samples, that's how you're able to either include or exclude.
that's correct.
If I may,
This house that they just bought in Hamilton, Ohio, they bought for 70,000, and it needed a ton of work. Trump and I actually share the same private airport. Jets. It's not too far from our helicopter. Tell him you're going to go and you're coming to audit his instruments and get stuck there.
I'll hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 224. Can I have you identify what State's Exhibit 224 is?
State's Exhibit 224 is BCI item number 3, which is a envelope containing Ms. Brewsaugh's left hand fingernail clippings, as well as a fingernail clipper.
Oh, tell me what's under there.
If I may display.
I want to see the barcode. Tell me whose DNA is under there.
And again, do you recognize any labeling on State's Exhibit to the procedures that you use to develop a DNA profile from 222 and 223? Would you have done something similar to State's Exhibit 224?
Yeah.
Sir, do you have an opinion? Is the DNA profile that was found in State's Exhibit 224?
Yes.
Okay, what is that opinion?
It is a mixture of DNA profiles, so that means there's more than one individual contributing to the DNA on the left-hand fingernail clipping, specifically a swabbing from a stain. The major DNA profile, or the individual that is contributing a higher concentration or higher amount of DNA, that DNA profile is consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh. Mr. Madden is not that major contributor, and the additional DNA on that item is not of sufficient quality for any comparisons.
And is
Could
there
have been too much blood.
statistical analysis or a statistical breakdown as to the frequency of Ms. Brewsaugh?
Yes, the DNA profile, the major DNA profile from the fingernail clipping, specifically the swabbing from the stain, the estimated frequency of occurrence of the major DNA profile is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals. So that means I would have to test a number larger than 1 trillion individuals to expect to find this DNA profile again in the population.
Certainly, there's not a trillion people in this world over there.
They are not.
What does it mean to be a major contributor, and obviously what does it mean to not be a major contributor?
A major contributor is an individual that's contributing a higher concentration or a higher amount of DNA in the sample compared to any other contributor or contributors. is BCI item number 4, which is a envelope that contains Ms. Brewsaugh's left-hand fingernail scrapings.
And what is the difference between, if you know, fingernail clippings versus fingernail scrapings?
My understanding is in the method of collection, a scraping is what it sounds like, scraping underneath someone's nails, versus a clipping is similar to how you or I would clip our nails.
And I'm going to put this up here, State's Exhibit 225. Is that been admitted, Your Honor, officially?
No, it's been identified, but not.
Okay. I guess I probably should have asked for 224 to be admitted to 225. And I'll go ahead and housekeeping matters 226 and 227.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, this will be admitted.
And again, this has a similar label number.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Item number 4, similar lab number 22-19832.
Correct.
And was this item, although BCI received this item, did you analyze this item?
No, this item was not examined.
Okay, is there a reason why it wasn't examined?
We looked at the fingernail clippings first.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 226. Can I have you identify State's Exhibit 226?
State's Exhibit 226 is BCI item number 5, which is a envelope containing Ms. Brewsaugh's right hand fingernail clippings and a fingernail clipper.
And again, item number 5 is similar label, similar lab number 2219832.
That's correct.
Okay. And did BCI, did you do an analysis on State's Exhibit 226?
Yes.
And again, based on your training, education, experience, and your analyzation of State's Exhibit 226, your opinion is a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that whose DNA is on this one.
Yes, I do.
What is it?
The DNA profile from the right hand fingernail clippings, specifically a sample from the stain, is also a mixture of DNA profiles. The major profile is consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh. Toby Madden is not the major contributor, and the additional DNA on this item as well is not of sufficient quality for comparisons.
So we have no idea whose DNA that might be.
That's correct.
Could that still be Toby Madden's DNA?
I can't make any conclusions regarding who the contributor of that additional DNA is.
And then State's Exhibit 227. You recognize State's Exhibit 227?
Yes.
And what is State's Exhibit 227?
State's Exhibit 227 is BCI item number 6, which is an envelope containing Ms. Brewsaugh's right hand fingernail scrapings.
Okay. And were these analyzed by BCI?
They were not.
Similar reason why the left fingernail scrapings were not analyzed?
That's correct.
All right, State's Exhibit, for the record, 213. Do you recognize that particular exhibit?
Yes.
And how do you recognize that particular exhibit?
State's Exhibit 213 is BCI item number 7.
And I'll take that from you real briefly. Again, that has a similar barcode and label as the other ones do. Item number 7, 22-19832.
Yes.
If I can have you take out what is in State's Exhibit 213, please. And what sort of analysis was done on that particular exhibit?
This item was examined for the presence of possible blood. No blood was identified on this item, as well as 2 samples were taken for potential DNA analysis. However, those were not sent forward for DNA analysis.
Okay. But there's no blood that was found on that particular white fluid.
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 215. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 215?
Yes, I do.
And what is State's Exhibit 215?
State's Exhibit 215 is BCI item number 8.
And what is BCI item number 8?
BCI item number 8 is a knife multi-tool.
If you would please open up State's Exhibit 215. And that also that's an item that was received by BCI.
Yes, it was.
And what sort of testing were you asked to do on Swiss Army knife with multi-tool?
The multi-tool knife was looked at for the presence of potential bodily fluids, specifically for blood. Each area that was tested on this multi-tool knife was negative, so no blood was identified. There were 4 different swabbings taken from different areas of the knife.
So let me stop you there with the court's permission. I have to step down and show the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where in particular the knife was swabbed.
Permission is granted.
Multi-tool. It was actually interesting. That on that particular multi-tool, there is two blades, a shorter blade and a longer blade, and the shorter blade has like a chip out of it, so it made it look like a can opener, a bottle opener, but it wasn't. It was actually a chip that's been snapped from the blade itself, and it matches a lot of the cuts on both Mr. Madden's vest and on Rachelle's t-shirt. Looking at the webcams and keys, key logo, not too bad at the moment. Here, Honda, and the low keys is getting quite a blow. Trees bending high surf. Oh dear. Oh dear. I have actually got, I was going to do a bit of an update on the weather. I've got the Orlando somewhere open. Yeah, to keep an eye on it. But yeah, stay safe. Stay safe. Palm trees can bend. Yes, they do bend. I was actually in Fiji during a hurricane or yes. Coconuts are the more dangerous than the palm trees. They know this is their best chance to get on TV. See a pine right next to a distressed palm looking just fine. The gum tree, we have a lot of gum trees in Australia, and they are terrible for dropping limbs because they have such extremes in weather. So they contract and relax so much that as soon as it gets windy, they just drop their limbs. It's shocking. so palm trees are they're just all out for the attention. So if there's a hurricane down there that is like really bad, do they evacuate? I know they would evacuate the public, but do they evacuate the jails as well? Like, is it everybody, or they just go, "Oh, no, too bad, you're incarcerated, you can stay," and just weather it out?
Or if you prefer, if you want to do it on the overhead, either whatever one is easiest for you. Whichever is easier for you, yes.
Okay.
This particular witness does not want to be seen on camera. That's why we're watching the seal and
One of the swabbings,
the prosecutor.
that is BCI item number 8.3. There was a swabbing of the handle, the red portion. That was BCI item number 8.2. There's a swabbing from the interior portion where this blade would have rested inside. And that is BCI item number 8.4.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another blade that was also swabbed as BCI item number 8.1.
Depends how well maintained they are, isn't it, I suppose. Hospitals are probably more so than jails.
And all the opinions about the SQ based upon your training, education, and experience.
Although that's
scientific certainty.
my assumption.
Yes.
Okay. What findings did you make on States Exhibit 215, BCI item number 8, the Swiss Army knife for the multi-tool knife?
Yes. So BCI items number 8.1 and 8.3, the swabbing from the blade as well as the swabbing from the broken blade, the DNA profile obtained from those items was not of sufficient quality for comparison due to insufficient data. So simply put, there just wasn't enough DNA present to make any conclusions regarding that DNA profile. The DNA profile from the swabbing of the handle had the same conclusions. There was not enough DNA present to make any conclusions regarding the source of that DNA. And lastly, BCI item number 8.4, which is a swabbing from the interior knife from the broken blade where that blade sits deep down inside. The DNA profile from that sample was a mixture of DNA profiles. So again, more than one contributor is contributing to that DNA profile. The major DNA profile was consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh. Mr. Madden, major DNA profile. And
Okay. Oh, hang on, let me
there
finish
is
that.
additional DNA present, but I cannot make any conclusions regarding who could be the source of that DNA.
So the inside of that, the two blades they swabbed and the handle of that multi-tool knife were inconclusive. They didn't have enough samples, but on the inside bit where they all squished together wasn't cleaned properly enough, and it was positive for the victim and the defendant's blood, and one other person that they couldn't identify.
As well.
Is that an unusual place to find DNA on a knife to you?
It depends.
In my opinion, yes, somewhat, because as you saw, it's a very
Yeah,
hard
that's
place to
true.
get your fingers down into.
Apparently, that relates to Udhef's mum. One of the most fascinating reads I recommend is the long form journalism piece about a doctor during Hurricane Katrina. That was over here, wasn't it? Who many suspect of authorising intentional unaliving of. Oh, really? Was it Katrina that was over here up in the north? Because they were too difficult to care for during the. Oh, wow. Wow. Have you got the name? And it's like is it a book or the name and author? That'd be awesome. Peter Heff, I wouldn't mind having a look at that. I'm always up for a good read. Not that that's good, so to speak. Unaliving of people is not good. Yeah, that'd be awesome. You've got my Discord link. You'll see it more than likely on AJ's. But if you search up the defence rests, or I'm on the Gavel Drops, I'm in their list of content creators. Thank you. Oh, you can DM me. You can tell I get on Discord a lot, don't you? Idiot here. Idiot.
However, if someone's handling the knife on a regular basis and opening and closing that piece, their DNA might be transferred there.
Udhef Bry has 15,000 pages of O.J. Simpson's trial transcripts. 15,000 in his attic. Get him to drop them into Discord.
State's Exhibit. State's Exhibit 217, item number 9. If you wouldn't mind telling us what that is, ma'am.
Yes, BCI item number 9 is a shirt.
You go ahead and take the shirt off here, please. And what sort of tests were conducted by BCI on this particular item?
BCI would have looked at the stains on the shirt and tested those to see if they would be presumptive positive for blood. And there was also a sample collected from the stain to be potentially set forward for DNA analysis.
And what findings were there on the shirt?
The stain from the shirt was presumptive positive for blood.
Check this out. There you go. That is that is the sink. The sink with luminol. How's that? Nasty? Nasty? Oh, it was a chick that did it. She was cleared of murder charges in 2006. Dr. Anna Powell, despite the odd name and killer tendencies, she was hiding. She have dark curly hair, by any chance? Cool. Thank you very much. But yeah, I just thought I'd share that. Is yeah.
Blood, the sample that was collected was not sent forward for DNA analysis.
All right, State's Exhibit 231. What is State's Exhibit 231?
State's Exhibit 231 is BCI item number 10, which are swabs from a bathroom sink.
Which we just saw.
And likewise, this item.
Now let's show the barcode again, shall we?
231.
Let's not. We're not getting the swabs out again.
That is contained within State's Exhibit 231. Do you recognize any of the markings on this as well?
Yes, this has the BCI item number at,
Exhibit 231.
yes.
Okay. And were you able to identify any DNA profiles contained on State's Exhibit 231?
Yes.
And I assume that you would use the same procedures that you've outlined before?
Yes, it did.
And within, based upon your training, education, and experience, and based upon a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what results did you conclude as to whose DNA is contained in State's Exhibit 231?
The sample was presumptive positive for blood. The DNA profile was a mixture of DNA profiles. The major DNA profile was consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh. Mr. Madden cannot be, Mr. Madden is not the major contributor, and there's also additional DNA present that I cannot make any comparisons or conclusions regarding who might have deposited that DNA.
So it could be Mr. Vance, it could not be Mr. Vance.
That's correct. I can't make any conclusions.
State's Exhibit 232. And what is State's Exhibit 232?
State's Exhibit 232 is BCI item number 12, which are swabs from a green jacket, the left lower region.
And again, you recognize the label that's on State's Exhibit 232?
Yes,
Item number 12, lab number 22-19832.
correct.
Yes, it's a
And the
swab.
item is contained within State's Exhibit 232. Do you recognize any of the markings on this?
Yes, again, it has the BCI lab number, item number, and initials and date from the individual that collected the samples.
And this is an item that you would have tested?
I swear they got they've had at least 2 investigators go through these swabs, and every time they've pulled them out of the packet and shown the swabs, and now they've got the DNA profiler, and they're getting them out, and not only showing the swabs, but they're showing the barcodes on the packet as well. Yes, that's a bit of a conundrum, Bri.
As part of your duties with BCI?
Yes, that's correct.
And were you able to develop any, or able to were you able to develop any DNA profiles?
Yes,
All right, and then again, based upon your training, education,
Wow.
experience, degree,
You don't have to go through the spiel every time.
the DNA profile, the sample from that item was presumptive positive for blood. and the DNA profile obtained from that item was a mixture of two individuals. The major DNA profile is consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh, and the minor
Right.
DNA profile
Okay,
is
so why can't you just say, in my medical experience and with the appropriate lab testing on this green vest, that was the victim's blood? So it's been established that her blood is on the green vest that they collected that the defendant was wearing when he went to Kruger's the night before.
consistent with Mr. Madden.
What statistical probabilities did you come up with on those?
For the major DNA profile, the estimated frequency of occurrence of that major DNA profile is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals. As far as the minor DNA profile, the estimated frequency of occurrence of the minor DNA profile is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals.
Did you see that? I've got the full clip. But yes, she was on a Nickelodeon show or something. Yeah. I just hang around malls and chat to guys and spend money. I don't think a lot's changed.
Thank you. State's Exhibit 233. What is State's Exhibit 233?
States Exhibit 233 is BCI item number 13, which are swabs from a green jacket, the middle left region.
Okay. I assume you recognize the label that's on 233?
Yes,
Item number 13, lab number 22198832.
that's correct.
Mhm.
And do you recognize any of the markings that are within State's Exhibit 233?
Yes, this contains the similar markings of the BCI case number, item number, and initials of the individual who collected the samples.
And what sort of analysis was done on State's Exhibit 233?
These samples were tested for the potential to have blood. They were presumptive positive for blood, and no DNA analysis was performed on these items.
Why did you just go through that then?
In State's Exhibits 234 and 235. Do you recognize those items?
Yes, I do.
And what are those items?
States Exhibit 234 is BCI item number 15, which is swabs from a gray button shirt, the lower left edge. States Exhibit 235 is BCI item number 16, which is swabs from a gray button shirt, right sleeve front.
And do you recognize the markings on State's Exhibit 234?
Yes,
And item 15, lab number 22-19832?
yes,
And do you recognize the markings on what is contained within State's Exhibit 234?
yes,
And what markings do you recognize?
yes. There's a BCI case number, item number, as well as analyst initials.
And were you able to analyze State's Exhibit 234 and attempt to ID any DNA profiles?
Yes,
And based upon your training, education, and experience, in a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what were your findings in regards to State's Exhibit 234?
the sample from the swabs was presumptive positive for blood. There was a mixture of DNA profiles on this item. The major profile is consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh. Mr. Madden is not the major contributor, and there's also additional DNA present that I cannot make any conclusions on.
And what is the statistical analysis on State's Exhibit 234?
The estimated frequency of occurrence of the major DNA profile from the swabs from the gray button shirt, lower left edge,
Okay.
is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals.
So we now have positive DNA evidence that the victim's blood was not only on the defendant's vest, but on the grey shirt that he wore under it as well.
And I know you've already identified State's Exhibit 235.
It's open.
Oh, is it? Okay. Hold on. I thought I opened it. On State's Exhibit 235, again, do you recognize any of the labels on this?
Yes, it has the VCI barcode on it.
Item number 16, lab number 2219832.
Correct.
And do you recognize any of the markings on what is contained within State's Exhibit 235?
Yes, it has the VCI lab number, item number, as well as analyst initials and date.
And were you able to analyze this particular item in regards to trying to identify any DNA profiles?
Yes,
Again, the same procedures that we've been talking about throughout your testimony?
yes.
Okay. And based upon your training, education, and experience to within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what were your conclusions?
The sample from the swabs from the gray button shirt, right sleeve front, they were presumptive positive for blood. There is a mixture of DNA present on that item. The major DNA profile is consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh. Mr. Madden is not the major contributor, and there is also additional DNA present that I cannot make any conclusions regarding the contributors.
And lastly, I believe there was one other item that you were asked to look at. State's Exhibit 216. And what are we looking at inside of State's Exhibit 216?
State's Exhibit 216 is BCI item number 17, which is a cigarette.
And was that an item that was tested by BCI?
Yes,
And based upon your training, education, and experience to within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, what were your findings in regards to the cigarette?
there were two samples collected from the cigarette butt. One was a swabbing of the cigarette, and the second was a cutting from the paper that would have come into contact with someone's mouth if they were to smoke that cigarette. The swabbing from the cigarette butt was not sent forward for DNA analysis. However, the cutting was. The DNA profile from the cutting was consistent with Mr. Madden.
Was there a statistical probability on that one as well?
Yes, the estimated frequency of occurrence of that DNA profile from the cutting of the cigarette butt is rarer than 1 in 1 trillion unrelated individuals. And I should also mention that Ms. Brewsaugh is excluded from that sample.
Ms. Daly, I think I had you identify State's Exhibits 239 and 240. So State's Exhibit 239, is that a lab report that you would have generated?
Yes,
And the date of that report would be December 1st of 2022?
that's correct.
Okay. And then it's my understanding that at a later point, the cigarette was delivered to your lab for testing, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's what would have made you generate a second report, which would have been 240, is that correct?
That's correct.
Because that would have contained the findings from the cigarette, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then explain the difference then between State's Exhibit 239 and 240.
State's Exhibit 239 would have included also items that were not examined, items that had DNA profiles that were developed that were not sufficient for comparison. And it also contained all of the bodily fluid testing within that report. Those are things that would not be carried forward to a second report.
Okay, so 240 is kind of a summary. And the date for the State's Exhibit 240 is February 21st, 2024. So State's Exhibit 240 would essentially contain a summary of 239 with the addition of the findings in regards to the cigarette.
Yes,
So the DNA on the cigarette butt at the front door was inconclusive. The inhalant remains anonymous. It's a bit of a resting bitch face look, isn't she, with the frown? Smile, Judge. It's Thirsty Thursday.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Hmm.
Good morning, Ms. Daly.
Good morning.
I have a few questions for you. I want to first, I know Mr. Burris went through everything with you, but I just want to kind of summarize if I can real quick with you. So you still have your report with you?
Yes.
So I want to start just to kind of go back over some of this, make sure I'm clear. So you analyzed the left-hand fingernail clippings of Rachelle, correct?
Yes.
And you were not able to make any conclusions of whether Toby Madden's DNA was within her left-hand fingernail clippings, is that?
No, because there was too much of hers
He
under
is
there.
not the major contributor, and I can't make any conclusions regarding the additional DNA that is on an item. So I can't include, exclude, or even call it conclusive.
Okay. And it's the same, is that the same for her right-hand fingernail clippings as well?
Yes,
You were given 2 knives, correct?
that's correct.
One of the knives, it looks like item 7, no blood on that knife at all. Am I reading that right?
The sample from the blade was tested for potential blood, and that was negative.
So did you get just a swab, or did you get the actual knife to look at?
We had the knife.
Okay. But one of the folding knife, no blood on it, just to come back to that, right?
No blood on the blade.
And then the knife, your item 8 says knife, multi-tool. Is that what you stood in front of the jury with?
Yes.
There was no blood found on that, correct?
Yes, the samples that were tested for blood were the swabbing from the blade, the swabbing from the broken blade, as well as the interior knife from where the broken blade sits.
Right. But my question was, there was no blood detected on any of that, correct?
There was no blood identified on the samples I mentioned.
Okay. But you did say that looks like item 8.4, there was some of Rachelle's DNA on the interior knife from broken blade. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, the major DNA profile was consistent with Ms. Brewsaugh.
But what you found was not blood, or what kind of DNA was it?
The sample was negative when we did our presumptive test for blood. So as far as where that DNA came from, I can't conclusively say. It could have been from skin cells. It could have been from some other bodily fluid that wasn't tested.
It was obviously
That's what
clean.
I wanted to know, because, and I'm probably not saying it right, but sometimes when we find DNA, it could be my blood, it could be my skin cells, it could be sweat, saliva. But item 8.4 that you tested doesn't have blood.
Correct. There was no blood identified.
So if there's any DNA of Rachelle that's some other form, like skin cells or whatever, that's other than blood, that's fair.
Yes, I can't say what though.
Right. Do you have any knowledge that this knife that was found was actually inside Rachelle's purse?
Yes, I did know that.
Okay. Because you said it would be unusual to find DNA on that part of the knife, but you would agree with me, it wouldn't be unusual if it's a knife that's in someone's purse that they may use almost every day, correct?
I would be more expectant to find her DNA on like the exterior of the knife. So when we swab the handle, I would expect to find her DNA there. This is kind of just an odd place to find DNA since it's really
Mhm.
far deep down inside. You can't theoretically like even stick your finger down.
Right. Have you ever used the multi-purpose tool? Have you ever used one of those?
Rarely.
Well, when you saw it, you see that there's little slivers in the top of each blade where you almost have to put your fingernail on to pull the blade up. Did you see that?
Yes.
So you're saying it would be uncommon if I'm opening that up, using my fingernail, my skin cells to pull the blade up, that it would be uncommon for my skin cells to be within the knife?
Not necessarily like I would expect your skin cells to be on that portion where you're contacting it and pulling it up. But this sample was taken from deep down in that group.
Okay. Have you ever used a knife to clean your fingernail beds out?
Not a knife, no.
Ew.
I understand,
Ew.
but not everybody does things the same way. Would you agree with me on that?
That's true, yes.
Could you, I know you're not going to do that, but could you use the end of a knife such as what you looked at just to kind of clean your nail beds?
You could.
Could use a toothpick too, but she wasn't stabbed with that.
Also, with regards to, I think it was the bright green shirt, you said that was positive for blood, but the steps weren't taken then to determine exactly whose blood that was. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, item 12 is a green jacket, and that's one of the pieces that you analyzed. And you said that Toby Madden was a minor DNA profile. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
For item 12? Do we know what DNA that is that you found there? Is that skin cells? Is it sweat, saliva, blood? Do we know what that was?
The sample that was collected was presumptive positive for blood. I can't say whether his DNA profile was as a result of his skin cells being deposited on that item or if it was also his blood.
And the clothes you have on today, the clothes I have on, every time I touch my, coat here, touch my tie, I'm depositing DNA and cells all over my clothing, correct?
That's correct.
So it's not unusual for a piece of clothing to have someone's own DNA on it, right?
Correct.
Judge, can I have a minute? Sure. No further questions. Thank you.
Correct?
I think I just have one redirect question. There was some of the DNA that you tested that you were not able to make any conclusions as to whose DNA it is that correct?
That's correct.
And why would that be?
It could be for a couple of reasons. The amount of DNA that was recovered from that item doesn't give a reliable enough DNA profile, so it doesn't meet our standards for comparison. It could have also been the quality of that DNA profile doesn't lend itself for comparison, or there could have been a number of individuals contributing to that DNA profile, making it also not sufficient for comparison.
Thank you. Nothing else, Ron?
No recross.
Again, please sit down. Thank you.
Council, go ahead.
Sure.
So they found 2 knives. One of the knives was on the top of kitchen cabinet, and that was found clean, no DNA or anything. But the red multi-tool knife that was found concealed behind the upturned cabinet that was beside the victim showed signs that the blades had been cleaned. There was not enough DNA present to do an adequate profile on either of the blades or the handle, but there was enough to establish that the victim's blood was lodged deep within the inside of where the blades go back into the handle, basically. So yes, her DNA was found on the very interior, and I am enjoying the beautiful strawberry fruits of our spring. It is a lovely spring over here. It's my favourite time of year because summer's next. I love all my summer fruits. I'm just waiting for the mangoes to come now.
Statement calls next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. This table called Tanya Cook.
Tanya Cook. Tanya Cook, come on down.
And my conversations with this witness, she does not. I'm sorry, video.
Right. You left something on that.
Proceed.
Good morning, ma'am. I appreciate you being here. Would you please state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Tanya Cook, T-O-N-I-A-C-O-O-K.
Do you know an individual by the name of Rachelle Brewsaugh?
Yes,
How do you know Rachelle Brewsaugh?
we were friends.
How long have you known Rachelle Brewsaugh?
We were when we were younger and then we played ball against each other and then as we got older because of Toby.
Okay. Are you a little nervous being here?
Yeah.
Okay.
We knew that microphone.
Yes.
For the witness.
Ma'am,
Yes, thank you.
we're having some difficulty hearing this. So,
Okay.
let me, if I can ask that last question again. How is it that you know Rachelle Brewsaugh?
We were friends.
The better- How long have you guys been friends?
When we were younger, we played ball against each other, and then probably 5 years
Okay.
as adults.
And do you know an individual by the name of Toby Madden?
Yes,
You see Toby Madden in court today.
yes.
Could you please point to him and describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury what it is he's wearing?
A blue dress shirt
Okay.
with stripes.
Your Honor, that's a record to reflect the witnesses identified the defendant Toby Madden.
The record will say reflect.
Ma'am, I want to direct your attention back to around Christmas time of 2021. Did you have contact with Toby Madden around that time?
Yes,
Did you hear him say anything about Rachelle Brewsaugh?
yes.
What did he say about Rachelle Brewsaugh?
Objection.
Ooh.
You can answer, ma'am.
He said that he would cut her head off, put it in her mom's lap, so the whole family would have to suffer.
Thank you, Judge.
Cross-examination?
Ms. Cook, that was pretty quick. Are you Toby's cousin?
Yes,
What makes you think that?
our grandmas are sisters.
What grandma, what's her names? What's the-
My grandma Venerable and his grandma, they were Molly and Polly Venerable.
Molly and Polly.
Croucher or something, I don't know. His name.
Did you get involved in this case where someone reached out to you, or did you call down the police department?
I called them.
This statement that you just say you heard, you said he was going to cut off her head and put it in his mother's lap?
Not
Her
his
mother's
mother's, her mother's. That's before she passed away.
Okay. Who was around when he said that?
My daughter, my husband.
Who-
He
what-
said it over and over again. It wasn't just one time. It was over and over again.
When you say over and over again, you talking about just that day?
No, just different days.
Okay. So I'm assuming you called the police, right?
When he said that?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
You said he said this in the presence of your daughter. What is her name?
Haley Cook,
And you said it was in the presence of your husband?
yes.
What's his name?
Chris Cook, Warren Cook,
Where were you at when this was said?
at my house.
What were you guys doing?
Toby would sell clothes and shoes, and
Were you selling clothes and shoes inside your house?
he would bring them in his truck, and I would buy shoes from him or clothes, whatever.
Okay, so when I asked you what you were doing that day when he said this, you're buying clothes and shoes from him?
Yeah, it's depending on what day it was. Like,
Well, I'm
like I
asking-
said, he
I'm
has
asking
said
you
it
about
over
the
and
day
over
that he made
again.
the statement. What were you doing that day that he made this statement?
I don't know, we were maybe sitting on the couch. I don't know exactly. We were talking, sitting there.
You remember what day it was?
No,
Day of the week?
no, because he said it quite frequent. It was either he was gonna stab her to death or cut her head off and put it in her mom's lap.
Where was he at inside your house when he said this?
Would you like right next to me on the couch?
All right, so he was inside your house.
Yes,
Your husband was there?
yes.
Were you drinking that day?
I don't drink or do drugs.
Your husband does though, right?
Yes,
Was he drinking or using drugs that day?
I don't know.
Well, how long have you been married to him?
22 years.
You can't tell us whether.
He's
or your
not
husband's been
testifying.
on
It doesn't
drugs
matter.
with him or on drugs?
He possibly was on drugs that day.
Did you ever take Toby to the hospital to see Rochelle's mom?
No,
Never?
never,
Did you ever take Toby anywhere to go see Rochelle's mother?
never.
Did you ever see Toby around her mother? Were you able to observe the two of them together?
No.
Absolutely. I don't know where are the objections, Teresa.
Rochelle
There's
hit
none.
Toby with a stick.
What, it was a thing that you put up underneath the doorknob to keep people from coming in. He had come to the house, Rochelle was there, and I could tell by his knock that it was him. I was like, that's Toby, Rochelle. And so she got up and answered the door, and he had the stick, and he hit her with it.
Oh, he hit her?
Yep.
Did she ever hit him with?
She took it back she got it from him and hit him with it
The stick,
also.
the stick was put up, exhibit 66, please.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, state exhibit 66.
Sorry.
If you wouldn't mind. Since you're connected, my computer.
That's something.
Can you see, is there a screen in front of you that has that name?
Yeah.
Does that look like the stick that Rochelle would have hit Toby with?
No.
And that he hit her with.
It would have understood. It was like silver.
What color is this?
I can't tell the color of that. That's not it.
You said this thing, whatever this, Rachelle used to hit Toby, was it metal?
Yes.
And you said it went under a door?
It was to help secure your door in your house. You stick it underneath your door. But Toby was the one that came and hit her with it first.
Right, but you're not denying that she then grabbed it and hit him, correct?
No, I'm not denying that. She did.
They had a really hot and cold relationship, didn't they?
Well, I mean, she was defending herself.
Is that yes or no? Did they
Hot
have
and
a
cold relationship? Yeah, she was trying to get away from him, so it wouldn't be hot and cold anymore.
I understand that, and I'm not trying to disrespect that she's passed. I'm going by what you saw between these two, because the reality is on the day that she is stabbed, you don't know what happened inside
No, I
that
do
house,
not.
do you?
No,
But you do know that they have a rocky relationship, don't you?
yes,
And you do know that she hit him with the stick, whether he used it first or she used it first. You've seen her hit him with the stick
yeah,
that goes under a door.
yes.
Didn't stab him 55 times though. Beside the point.
Did you ever go as far as to tell the police that Toby pulled a gun on her?
No, I did not.
You didn't do that? Just 9 seconds.
Sure.
They also don't report screams for 7 seconds either, because that's a frequent occurrence in that neighbourhood.
No further questions.
Anything else?
There you are. Thank you.
Okay, then you may step down. Thank you.
Does the state rest?
The council for-
Yes, please.
On behalf of the state of Ohio, I believe this code is released to the states.
Very well.
Come on. L. Does the state rest? Bring it along. If I could think of words, I'd be singing a song. Now, today's court is only a half day. Again, today. There must have been some scheduling issues. Come on. Oh,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's the court's understanding that the state has presented its last witness to you. So at this time, we need to take care of some business outside of your hearing. So I'm going to go ahead and release you a little bit early today so that we can take care of that. We'll come back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and proceed from there, okay? But please remember my recess instructions.
siblings are one of the most cringe types of unalivings. You have to feel your weapon. Yes. Sorry, stabbings. I just got new glasses today and it's still not helping. I was sure that said siblings. Look, stabbings, they are very, very up close and personal. And for 50, when the medical examiner was on yesterday, because they initially stated that she had 77 stab wounds, but he actually said that he didn't include the only wounds that he, because it was such a small blade on the multi-tool, he didn't include a lot of the lacerations and contusions that weren't as penetrating as the others. So some of them could have still been puncture wounds from such a small blade, but had either gone at a different angle and had caused more of a surface laceration than a puncture, so to speak, because he couldn't tell what angle and what force was used for each one. So he only counted the deep penetrating punctures that as his stab wound. So that would have had to have been a frenzied attack, like you punch a pillow 55 times. It's horrific. And yeah, he tested positive for her blood all over the green vest and the top that he was wearing the night before on the CCTV footage that they recovered in the basement. Yeah. So the state has just rested, and they're going to do some housekeeping stuff, and then they will be back again at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So let's have a listen to what they've got to say. Motion to dismiss. I'm tipping. Doesn't the defence always put in a motion now for acquittal or mistrial or something? I think, yeah, stabbings and strangulations would be probably the nastiest, or drownings, like, ugh.
Okay, please be seated. So the jurors have been excused from the courtroom, and at this time, would you like to take out these exhibits? Okay.
So I believe state's exhibits 1 through I think 1 through 206 have all already been indicated.
And that's what my recollection is as well. However, there is no exhibit 177, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that takes us to 207, and we'll go from there.
So, Your Honor, I believe the coroner's report is a self-authenticated document. It is certified.
Yeah, sounds like they're just going through all the exhibits
Any
and
objection? Okay, sure.
making sure they're all
Talking about 207?
admitted.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so that'll be admitted. And then I have 208, 209, 210, and 211 being admitted, 212 being identified but not admitted. That is the wallet.
Wherever we take photos of it, it's going to be 212.
You can send a wallet back. I was just making sure there's.
And then there's also a dollar bills, a couple dollar bills.
No, it's fine. That can go back.
All right, so we'll admit that.
But like social security stuff, nothing.
All right.
We'll do that.
No motion to dismiss?
17, 2022.
Identified but not admitted, that is the black book bag. Any objection to the book bag?
No.
Okay,
And
that'll be
if I
admitted.
ask your bailiff, I've gone through it, but if the bailiff would like to go through and make sure that it's, I don't believe there's anything in here that's harmful or anything, but
If you would do that, Mr. Halcom. Okay, all right, so then the next, I have 215, 216, 217, and 218 is being admitted, 219 and 220 being identified but not admitted. That would be the gray hat and the Kroger bag.
I ask for this to be admitted.
No objection.
Okay, those will be admitted. And then it appears there is no exhibit 221.
Correct.
Okay, so 222 I have as being identified but not admitted.
I ask for it to be admitted.
No objection.
Okay, that'll be admitted. And then I have 223, 24, 224, 225, 226, 227 is being admitted. And I do not have 228, 229, or 230 being identified or admitted.
Correct. There's no, Toby knows it is there.
Okay,
What was those again? I'm sorry.
228, 229, and 230.
Okay. Got
All
it.
right, and then we've got 231, 238. Not addressed. Exhibits being admitted. Is the state going to have any other evidence?
State has no other witnesses to present, no other evidence to submit, and state would rest.
Very well, and of course, we'll let you do that in front of the jury tomorrow.
Right.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, now that the state has rested, Mr. Wilder, is there anything you'd like to put on the record?
Judge, at this time, we would make a Rule 29 motion for acquittal on.
Told ya. Every time.
Like most favorable to them, and if not provided sufficient evidence on all the elements of all the charges presented.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Justice General.
Anything that the state wishes to put on the record?
Motion is denied.
Sufficient evidence for to warrant the case go to trial fact.
All right, well, the court has carefully listened to the evidence, and considering Rule 29 and the appropriate standard in that rule, the court is going to respectfully deny the motion.
Well,
Anything
sure.
else,
You know, don't get if you don't
anyone would like
ask.
To take up today, before I take up the.
We're
vote?
coming. Yep.
Not at this time, Judge. Obviously, I'm discussing with Mr. Madden, his case and whether he's going to testify or not. And once that decision is made, that'll obviously be something.
Wonder how many witnesses
I'm
got.
not sure what this county does, or you yourself, Your Honor, but that may have to go on the record.
Very well.
But nothing other than that.
All right, well, that brings me to the jury instructions that I wanted to discuss with you. And in those instructions, we have started out by saying that Mr. Madden would not testify, but certainly we will amend that if in fact he chooses to exercise his right to testify. So I'll have that language prepared to go either way based upon what happens with the case as we proceed. Other than that, Mr. Burris, Mr. Hahn, do either of you have any comments, corrections, or requests to the draft jury instructions that I have provided?
I don't believe so at this time, Your Honor. We don't know.
Sure, and I understand we would probably have to conference again, but I just want to have them in the best position possible so that they're easy for us to modify and alter as we proceed. Did you have anything that you wanted to change or add, Mr. Wilder?
Judge, I don't see anything with what's printed out here. However, based on some of the testimony, there is a potential that we may be requesting an instruction on voluntary manslaughter. I will certainly file something as a formal record, but other than what was printed out, I don't see anything in there at this point, but anything additional like that.
We want some lesser included in there.
Certainly file something and obviously bring it to the court's attention.
All right. Well, then I will leave them unchanged at this point, and if the defense chooses to present a case after that, we'll conference again and see if we need to make any other changes.
All right.
Okay. Anything else before we recess for the day?
I assume it would be the court's intention to try and get this, this case to the jury by sometime tomorrow. This day is late as we're going to stay.
If we are still presenting evidence or doing closing arguments, or if we're not finished with those things, I would anticipate asking the jurors if they would like to stay or not. If we're in deliberations, likewise, I will ask them if they wish to stay. So I'm largely going to leave it up to the jurors. So if you would be prepared to stay past business hours, if that's how they choose to proceed. Okay. Anything else?
Well, looks like we may have the defence's case in chief finished tomorrow. The state possibly resting with some closing arguments and deliberations happening again on a Friday Eve. Judge is going to ask the jurors whether or not they want to stay. No, I don't think that will take them very long. She's going to ask them to see if they wanted to stay and, deliberate later into the evening, but she's going to leave that decision up to them. So they're hoping to finish it off. If not, we can follow it up Monday morning, because the trial that I'm going to start Monday, I'm assuming they will have jury selection first up. So depending on where that's at on Monday, we may have to start that Tuesday morning. But I'll keep an eye on it. So whether or not this flows into Monday for deliberations and we have a verdict watch, and then we follow on to the new trial on Tuesday, or we start the new one on Monday, depending on jury selection. So there you have it. Has everyone been convinced beyond a reasonable doubt yet? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If the jury thinks that they might be, once they've been in deliberations for an hour or so, I'm sure they'll have an idea of some sort as to how long it's going to take to reach a decision. But yes, yes. Yes, I think the state has reached their burden. Yeah. Yes, yesterday was interesting with the medical examiner. He was there all afternoon, but yes, let me know what you think of the sink. Yeah, nasty. You could almost get a suntan off it with all the luminol. And some graphic, some graphic pictures, graphic. But enjoy that. So, yes, look forward to next week's trial. I'm just doing the finishing touches on the research of that, and it looks like it's going to be an interesting one, so that'll be good. If you've got any ideas or requests, particularly for something over the Christmas period that you'd like covered, let me know. Pop them in a comment, pop them in chat. Yes, absolutely. Anyone that's anywhere near the hurricane down Florida way, stay safe. Leave if you have to. Your life's more important than bricks and mortar. Take your pets, take your essentials, and go. And yes, please stay safe. Alrighty, well, looks like I'm going to have me an early night for once. Woohoo! That's exciting. I don't think I've been to bed before 3:34 a.m. for at least 3 weeks. And it's 1:40. Excellent. Well, I'll be rip-roaring and ready to go tomorrow. You wait and see. I'll catch you tomorrow if I have power. But oh, so you down there too, Tracia? Oh, well, stay safe, darling. Okay, please stay safe. Thanks, bro. Love to you all. And until next time. Oh, excuse me. I'll leave you with that, and I shall bid you adieu. Bye.
Covering true crime and police arrest, where the judges move and the defense rests. Watching courts and trials, criminals at best, where the gavel drops and the defense